So after my last video, Trish asked if I could talk about some of my favorite authors. Okay! First and foremost, for always, J.K. Rowling. She's an excellent storyteller. From Hogwarts to Pegford to London, new Cormoran Strike novel out on Tuesday! I'm in. I care, I'm curious, but most importantly, for me anyway, the people feel whole. They're not totally good, they're not totally bad, except for Umbridge. They have intricate histories and vibrant emotions, and they're just like people I know. They're just like me. I think that's why she can switch genres with such seeming ease. Of course, her words are so deeply etched into my soul that reading her tweets feels like coming home. So, you know. But I'm certain I'd be able to recognize a bad story if she ever wrote one. And now, in no particular order, some authors you are maybe less familiar with. Alan Bradley is a Canadian author known for an adult mystery series centered around an 11-year-old chemist named Flavia DeLuc. The books are pretty upbeat, considering they're about murder, and something about seeing it all through the eyes of this clever, slightly neglected kid is really refreshing. Plus, she's super endearing. And she has a bike called Gladys. They're set in the 1950s English countryside, and the first one is called The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie. Neil Gaiman writes mostly fantasy, and usually it's the kind of fantasy that takes place in our worlds, just with some extra bits that you didn't know about. I find most of his stories to be really elegant, often bittersweet, but they'll make you laugh and cry and wonder, and sometimes they're creepy as shit. They get stuck in your head, but instead of a melody, it's a feeling you can't shake. If you want to try some short stories or poems, I'd recommend Fragile Things, a collection I talk about pretty incoherently in this video. Neverwhere is a great place to start novel-wise, although if you do British humor and can handle a fair amount of absurdity, for the love of God, read Good Omens. He wrote it with Terry Pratchett, and it is one of my favorite books ever. The Doctor's Wife is my favorite Matt Smith episode of Doctor Who. If you have kids, fortunately The Milk is one of the funniest and grossest stories ever. And Sandman. If you're into graphic novels, even if you're not, read Sandman. Patrick Rothfuss is writing an epic fantasy series called The Kingkiller Chronicle. It's a different world. Still humans, but medievally with an 11-day week, different countries, and magic. Except it's only the ignorant who think of it as magic. To the educated, it's called sympathy, and it's much more of a science. It's magic. But it's so well written that as Ben's talking about the Olar, I'm trying to do it. I'm all, okay, it's just science. If I concentrate really hard and convince those two things that they're connected, then I'll be able to— Laura, you can't learn magic! I just want it so bad. Anyway, the first book is called The Name of the Wind, and it starts at the end. The King Killer has his name and he's in hiding. Then the Chronicler shows up and gets him to tell his story. You see where the series title comes from? From then on, you're mostly at the beginning moving forward, but occasionally you'll jump back to the end and get a few hints about the middle. But mostly, he's just a kid. He's an arrogant asshat, but sometimes he's sweet, and he's the hero. Not an anti-hero, a straight-up questing hero. He's gonna learn some things, he is gonna save some people, and if the end at the beginning is the end at the end, he's gonna lose everything. That sounds like a spoiler, but I feel like anything you learn in the first 50 pages of a 722-page first book of a series doesn't count. It's an adventure story, filled with characters I love, characters who keep me guessing, and characters that scare me. It's a beautifully sculpted world, and I'll be happier holding the third Kingkiller Chronicle than the sixth Song of Ice and Fire, though I am eagerly awaiting both. And last but not least, Annie Barrows and Marianne Schaefer wrote a delightful book called The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. Annie Barrows has written a lot of other stuff. I have read none of it. Guernsey takes place post-World War II in the United Kingdom and is mostly told through a series of letters. A man on Guernsey got a used copy of some Charles Lamb essays with a woman's name and address written inside. He enjoyed the book, but post-occupation, there were no bookshops on the island. So he sent the woman a letter asking for London bookshop recommendations. The two strike up a correspondence, and it turns into a much bigger thing because she's a writer and she wants to know all about the Channel Islands being occupied during the war. It's really charming. I mean, it takes place immediately after World War II, so there are some heartbreaking moments, but it's about a society coming back to life. It's really lovely. So that's me. A marked preference for fantasy, but I'll read anything and love it as long as it's well told. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. Bye! Don't go out and buy all of these books. Just go to the library. Libraries are awesome.